Do me a favor. Think about an adult from your childhood, someone who was close with you, someone you trusted. This might be a grandparent, a parent, a guardian, an aunt, uncle, a cousin, an older sibling, a family friend. Do you have someone pictured in your mind? Great. Now imagine yourself at 6 or 7 years old. You're walking through downtown Chicago, holding hands with your trusted adult, that person you've pictured in your mind. It's a sunny, sticky, sweaty, and smoggy summer day. We're several days into a heat wave, and you're exhausted as the sun beats down on you between the skyscrapers. Several times, you felt a bead of sweat trickle down your spine. Your throat is dry and scratchy, and you just want to rest. You turn the corner, and you notice a food truck up ahead. As you get closer, you realize this isn't just any food truck. It's a snow cone truck. Your adult must have noticed it too because you hear, "Hey, do you want to get a snow cone?" "Do I want to get a snow cone?" "Yes," you shout. Nothing sounds better than a snow cone right now. You can already taste the sweet, cold ice on your tongue. You start walking a little faster. There might even be a little skip in your step as you get closer and closer to the snow cone truck and that cold, wonderful reprieve. But as you approach the truck, the hand you're holding just keeps going, right past the snow cone truck. "Aren't we getting snow cones, you ask?" And you hear the response, "No, we're not getting snow cones." How do you feel? Do you feel like this? Do you feel like this? Or this? Or possibly this? Why would someone do this to you? Why would anyone, especially someone you trust, ask you if you want a snow cone, only to walk right by? Now, is it possible there was a logical reason for not getting a snow cone? Maybe you were late for your train or your bus. Maybe there was a sign that said closed or cash only. Maybe your trusted adult had a different snow cone stand in mind, one that was several blocks away. But you don't know that. In this instant, all you really know is that you want a snow cone and you don't have one. Has this ever happened to you? Have you ever been asked a question and responded only to be ignored or to feel betrayed? I'm here to speak with you this morning about how we use information. As we continue, I ask you to keep that snow cone story in mind and how you felt at the end of that story. My guess is that at some point in your life, you have had someone ask you a question, provided a response, only to feel ignored. I bet it didn't feel very good. I'm asking you to do better. I'm saying that you can use information in a better way. And along the way, I'm going to talk a little bit about why sometimes it's best if we just take a step back and stop measuring stuff. Let's start by talking about a problem that we have. Human beings have become information pack rats. We continue to amass more and more data every day. A lot of this data comes from social media. Tweets, posts on our Instagram and Facebook feeds, constant celebrity updates on Snapchat, not to mention emails and texts, phone calls, advertisements, videos. In fact, in 2016, Sencha's CEO, Art Landro, reported that in the previous 2 years, we had amassed more data than in the entire prior history of the human race. Last year, Analytics Week reported that we had collected a total of 2.5 trillion gigabytes of data. And they gave us this estimate for the future. By 2020, 1.7 megabytes of new information will be created every second for every human being on the planet. To put that in perspective, imagine you were to type just 1 second of that information onto standard office paper just like this, and then stack that paper on top of itself. Those stacks would be long enough to reach around the world 97 times. That's 97 times per second. Now, what if I told you that less than 0.5% of that data is ever used or analyzed? In other words, we continue to collect more and more information, but we're only using a tiny amount of it. Most of this information is collected and analyzed without us giving it a second thought. If the recent controversy surrounding Facebook and Cambridge Analytica has had any positive impact, it's to show more and more people how extensive the collection of our online data really is. But there's another type of data collection that affects us on a more personal level, that we take more time out of our everyday, and that is the survey. Just this week, I reviewed the number of surveys that I've collected. So in the last week, looking at the surveys at the bottom of my restaurant receipts or shopping receipts or those in my email, not including anything that I may have scrolled past on social media or on websites, I counted 21 surveys in the last week alone. Most of those surveys provided some sort of incentive for taking the survey. And guess how many I completed? 1. I work with surveys as part of my job, and I completed 1 single question survey out of 21 available to me in the last week. Why don't I complete surveys? In large part, it's because I don't believe that the data is going to be used properly. It's as though if someone asks me if I want a snow cone, and I say, yes, I want a snow cone, I'm never getting a snow cone. And this is because I see this happen all the time. I'm not the only one who's skeptical. Forbes Media reports that the majority of consumers are annoyed by satisfaction surveys, and that 2/3 of people would rather call, email, or discuss a concern face-to-face than respond to a survey. I'm sure you've also had the experience of having someone specifically ask you to give them a positive review on the survey. All of this creates bias in the survey results. This means that the most actionable data that companies are receiving isn't coming from surveys, and yet we keep getting surveys. In the workplace, CEOs are largely ignoring employee engagement survey results. The workforce engagement firm Motivacity reports that fewer than 2% of CEOs review employee engagement survey results more than once. Millions of dollars and countless work hours are spent on these surveys, and CEOs are ignoring the results. And yet we keep getting surveys. So where do you fit into all of this, other than being overloaded with surveys and information and probably feeling like you need to do something to lock down your online presence? I'm asking you to do better. Do better than those corporations. Do better than those employers. Do better than the people who are in power today. I'm asking you to think about yourself and other people when you collect information. I'm asking you to be truthful and be kind when you collect information. And believe it or not, you can be truthful and kind by asking yourself one simple question. How are you going to use the information? Let's imagine that you want to use the information so that you can support a decision you already made. In other words, you already made up your mind. It sounds silly, right? Why do you need more information if you already made up your mind? You don't. But I see this happen all the time too. Someone will have made a decision, and then when they're collecting additional information, they're really just collecting information to support the decision that they already made. The truthful and kind answer here is to stop measuring stuff. Communicate your decision and move on. What if instead you need additional information before you can make a decision? Great, keep going. And as you're continuing to gather information, make sure you're using reliable sources and you reach out to experts for help as needed. What if instead you already have the amount of information that you need in order to make a decision? You've reviewed your information, it's from unbiased sources, and it clearly points you towards a specific decision. Many people will continue to gather additional information at this point, thinking, the more data, the better, right? This isn't what you need to do. The truthful and kind answer here is to stop measuring stuff. All of our time is too precious to waste gathering information that we're not going to use. Next, let's think about a scenario where you're trying to measure effectiveness, maybe of a program you're working on, or maybe make some improvements. Great. These are some of the best reasons to collect information. Determine measures for effectiveness, collect information, and then make sure you use that information to make improvements. This last one is tricky. You may have been told that you need to measure something. This is usually by your boss or someone that you work with or at your company. You're probably annoyed and probably think this is going to be a gigantic waste of time. But I'm asking you to be truthful and kind to yourself here as well. If you are being asked as part of your responsibilities to measure something, make sure you measure something that's meaningful to you. For example, you might want to measure effectiveness of something you're working on, or you might want to make improvements. This is great. Then you will know that you're using the information properly, and you're not wasting your time or anyone else's time. Next, make sure you communicate the decision that you make, and make sure you communicate the information that you use to make that decision. Think back to that snow cone. We're not sure why our trusted adults ignored our input, but if they had only told us why we weren't getting a snow cone, we would have definitely felt more trusted and more respected. Hopefully not like this. Also think back to that mass quantity of information that we're collecting every day. With all of this information surrounding us, the way to do better and to make better decisions is to keep the human element in mind. You are the world's next decision makers. You have seen the repercussions of bad decision making or poor decision making in our state, our country, and across the globe. You can do better. Use the information that you have. Be truthful and be kind with yourself and with others. And make sure that sometimes you realize the best solution is to stop measuring stuff. Thank you.